says, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, we have a problem. King Nebuchadnezzar is going to have us all cut into little pieces and our house is demolished if he cannot know what his dream was last night and what it meant. We need to pray. So Daniel gathered his 3 friends and together they have a prayer meeting. You can imagine what kind of prayer this prayer was that they were praying. They're being rounded up. Daniel takes his friends and they begin to pray. God, please reveal to us the dream that the king has had. Daniel goes to sleep that night. And sure enough, God gives Daniel a dream. The same dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had had the night before. Not only does Daniel receive the dream, but the Lord explains to him in his sleep what the dream means. When Daniel wakes up in the morning, you can see the words on his lips. Thank you. Thank you and praise you, O God. The God of my fathers, for you have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king. Well, Daniel next this morning, he gets up. He runs to Arioch, the captain of the guards, and he says, do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret the dream for him. Well, this is news. Arioch takes Daniel to the king. Daniel stands before the king, and he says, O king, I have news for you. And the king says, can you tell me what my dream was? And he says, no, I can't. But there's a God in heaven who is a revealer of mysteries. This is what he says. Daniel 2 verse 27. No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery that you have asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He's shown you, King Nebuchadnezzar, what is going to happen in days to come. King's getting interested. Daniel says, as you were lying there, O king, you dreamed of a large statue. Things to come were shown to you by the God of heaven. He was revealing mysteries of what is about to happen. As he begins to describe it, remember that Daniel recorded all of this 600 years or so before Christ. This is a prophecy that God has given about what is going to happen, and Daniel writes it down. You looked, O king, and there you saw a large statue. King Nebuchadnezzar is thinking, statue? Yes. Yes. Go on. Yes, the statue had a head of gold. And it had a chest and arms of silver. It had a belly and thigh of bronze. Its legs were of iron, and its feet were partly of iron and partly of baked clay. King Nebuchadnezzar is getting excited. Why, I do believe you're onto something. Yes, it was a statue. Head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron. Yes, and the feet of iron and partly of baked clay. While you're watching, O king, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver and the gold were broken to pieces at the same time and became like chaff on a threshing floor. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. Well, it must have been a startling sight to see this rock come hurtling down out of who knows where, strike the image at its feet and smash the whole thing to pieces. The king is amazed. He's wondering, how did you do this? Where did you get this from? But he's listening. Daniel says the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Wow, Nebuchadnezzar is saying, yes, yes, that's it. A rock that filled the whole earth. Can you imagine the king's response at this point? Can you imagine how excited he must be? He's got this whole swathe of rich men. He's been feeding them. He's been paying them. He's been clothing them. He's been putting them in houses. The whole lot's worth nothing when it comes to the crunch. And here comes this exile he took captive in one of his raids of those Jewish people down in Jerusalem. And he's telling him his whole dream from start to finish. Exactly as he dreamed it. Well, one thing is certain to the king. His dream certainly is significant. Because this young man standing in front of him could not possibly have known what this dream was. Therefore, it must be divine in origin. There must be a God out there somewhere revealing a mystery to King Nebuchadnezzar. Must be a divine source. Maybe he wondered why this God was showing him this dream of the future. Maybe he was wondering, what does this have to do with me? Well, Daniel goes on to tell him what the dream meant. This very dream was a prediction of the rise and fall of kingdoms that would rise and fall upon the face of the earth. In just a few words, God described the history of the world from 600 BC right down through time to eternity, to the climax of Earth's history and beyond. And as Daniel begins to give the meaning of the dream, he looks straight at the king and he says, "You, O king, are the head of God." And King Nebuchadnezzar's thinking about this. Yeah, I like that. I'm the head of God. I can live with this. I like this dream. You know, Babylon was a good description to be a golden kingdom. Gold adequately described the kingdom of Babylon. It was a nation of gold. And as the king smiled, perhaps he's thinking about the gold that is spread throughout his kingdom. Babylon was unsurpassed in its wealth and its use of gold lavishly to adorn the buildings. Historians talk about how much gold was used in Babylon, this great ancient city, used on the buildings, on the gates. This is a quote from Uriah Smith in the book Daniel and the Revelation. He says, "Situated in the garden of the east, laid out in a perfect square with a moat or a ditch around it, its gates of brass, its hanging gardens rising terrace above terrace, its 2 royal palaces. There, with the whole earth prostrate at her feet, a queen in peerless grandeur, stood this city, the fit capital of that kingdom, which was represented by the golden head, an extremely wealthy and powerful kingdom." You remember the famous hanging gardens of Babylon, which I believe one of the kings built for his wife to enjoy, one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. Well, if Daniel was a clever politician, you know what he would have done? He would have said, "King, that's about it. That's what your dream was about. You the head of gold, everybody's happy, I'm on my way home." But he wasn't. And Daniel goes on and he does something that no clever politician would ever do. He says, "King, you the head of gold, but God is revealing something about history here. After you, there will come another kingdom." Verse 39, this is what he says, "Another kingdom will arise inferior to yours." Now you can imagine what King Nebuchadnezzar is thinking at this point. I don't like that. Another kingdom will arise. That means somebody's going to conquer me and my kingdom. The king is realizing there is something divine going on, and so he listens. And even though the smile is quickly fading from his face, Daniel goes on. "Another kingdom will arise, O king, a kingdom inferior to yours, represented by silver." Daniel lived to see it happen. You know, another kingdom did arise. The kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. Cyrus the Mede led his armies in against one of Nebuchadnezzar's descendants, a man by the name of Belshazzar, as he and his arrogant people were partying and toasting the God of heaven with his own things that they took captive from Jerusalem. On October 13th, 539 BC, the kingdom of Babylon came to an inglorious end, just as God had prophesied. In fact, God not only said it would happen, He told us who and how it would happen. Look at this. This was written 150 years before Babylon fell. It's in the book of Isaiah chapter 45 and verse 1. God said, "Thus saith the Lord to His anointed," to who? Cyrus. God names the king that will depose Babylon, whose right hand I have held. Don't you love that? God's going to lead a man by the name of Cyrus to take over from Babylon. He will subdue nations before him. He will loose the armor of kings, to open before him the double doors, so that the gates will not be shut. You know what these gates are? Well, if you look at history, it gives you a big clue. Cyrus could not have gotten into Babylon by taking down the walls. There was no hope to lay siege. He couldn't go over the walls. They were too thick. There were double walls and they were powerfully built.